film begins with a newcomer named Gao Han. Gao Han, despite being married, had secured admission to a prominent finance university, and on his own merit had topped the university. Everyone was overjoyed. His friend, Cheung, and Cheung's father came to celebrate his happiness, thanking Gao Han for being the reason Cheung was able to pass with flying colors. Gao Han even offered Gao Han a job at his company, but Gao Han declined, believing he would secure a good job based on merit. But that was just his imagination. He didn't know that even PhD holders were vying for jobs in this field. Even when he went to apply for a standard internship, he encountered over 400 people, most of whom were also PhD holders. Soon, the hearing process was complete, leaving the village without any jobs. He had now returned, dejected. While searching for a new job, he received a call from a large bank. It was an international investment bank, where even highly experienced people were denied opportunities. But Bluestone had personally approached Gao Han for the job and hired him without an interview. Gao Han felt nothing wrong. He was overjoyed, believing he was a topper. So, such people must only call toppers. But the truth was that he got this job thanks to his friend's father, who was a major client of Bluestone and owned his own energy company. At this company, he was appointed assistant to a man named Cheung and given 6 months to learn the ropes. But we learned that Cheung was a rather rude man. He disliked Gao Han because he had no experience, and also because he thought Gao Han had graduated from a small university. What could he possibly know? He even prints out his rejection letter as soon as he arrives, telling him to hire someone else as his mentor. Poor Gao Han stands there silently at first, then scans the office, notices a glitch in a formula Jane has been working on the screen. Gao Han fixes it, and Cheung, impressed by his actions, hires him as his assistant for a few months, under the condition that he'll learn quickly and won't bother him too much. Gao Han understood everything he was saying. Just then, Cheung receives a call from a helicopter manufacturing company. They were planning to list their company for an initial public offering, IPO, and needed to prepare a report for helicopter buyers. Cheung immediately takes Gao Han with him to the helicopter manufacturing company. He is warmly welcomed there. The company wanted Cheung to prepare the report for helicopter buyers while sitting in the helicopter. But this wasn't right for Cheung. Cheung was an honest officer. He told the officer that he would first inspect every spare part of the helicopter before preparing a report. At his request, a team of engineers arrived and disassembled each part of the helicopter for him. Cheung then discovered that the helicopter was in poor condition. Many spare parts had been imported to reduce costs, resulting in a decline in the helicopter's quality. He refused to list the helicopter company. However, the manager was also adamant that his company be listed. So Cheung halved their company's valuation, forcing everyone to reluctantly sign the contract. After the contract, they left, and we see Cheung begin teaching Gao Han about his company and how it works. He explains how small companies are listed within a large international bank so that people can deposit their funds there. They can contribute their money, which can then be invested in the business, making not only the company, but also the stock market and investors. Jiang's words reveal that Bluestone was the oldest IPO company. Almost every company Jiang had listed so far has been profitable. Gao Han also begins working there with full dedication, putting in extra hours in his pursuit of learning. Working here, he discovers many things he hadn't learned or studied. Chand was already impressed, and now seeing his interest, he grows fond of Gao Han even more and resolves every single one of his doubts meticulously, even if it means sacrificing his personal time. Wherever Jung goes for a deal, he takes Gao Han along. This allows Gao Han to understand the inside of companies, and Gao Han learns a great deal about their transactions. After months of hard work, Jung finally assigns Gao Han his personal project. He has to analyze all the data of a pharmaceutical company so that it can be listed for an IPO. Gao Han diligently prepares the pharmaceutical company's financial report, collecting data from various sources and analyzing it methodically. Finally, the day arrives when the pharmaceutical company must be listed. Dealings begin with the pharmaceutical company's owner, and it becomes clear that this man is extremely cunning. He wanted to list his company not only domestically, but internationally, and also wanted to keep his company's valuation high here at Bluestone. Therefore, he rejected Gao Han's financial report, saying, "We will prepare the financial report ourselves, and you guys will just sign it." Chang, who never acted without principles, cancels such a big deal and leaves. Even though this deal would have been a huge benefit to his career, Gao Han returns to the office in the dark of the night, deeply disappointed. He wonders why Jung did this. If Jung had listened to him, Gao Han would have been able to secure a job. But then the sweeper explains, "You probably don't know Jung. Jung is a very honest officer. Apparently, people here don't like Jung, but everyone buys shares in the IPOs he launches because Jung's analysis is always excellent. He works on principles. This is why people often make huge profits by holding shares for a long time." Gao Han felt he had to do whatever he had to do himself, as Jung wouldn't offer him another deal. He looked at several large companies whose IPOs hadn't yet listed. He found a dog food company, about which he first gathered all the information, went to the market, and purchased its products. He prepared an excellent financial report, and then called the company's CEO. When Gao Han contacted her personally, the girl was impressed and invited him for a meeting. Overjoyed, Gao Han approached Jung and explained how he had worked hard to secure the deal and how he had changed his approach. Jung also liked this approach. He now checked Gao Han's report and work, finding all the mistakes and perfecting everything. Together, they set out to speak to the company's CEO. Now, in the very first meeting, both Gao Han and Jung realize that the woman has no interest in the deal, nor does she show much interest in Jung, and this makes Jung laugh. The woman even invites Gao Han to her house to discuss the IPO in more detail. In the car, Jung explains her intentions to Gao Han, saying, "If you don't want to go, then don't go." But this was the first project Gao Han had secured on his own, so he wanted to give it a try. Upon returning home, the CEO treats Gao Han very well, and then, using various excuses, gets closer to him. When Gao Han refuses and continues to talk about the IPO, the woman becomes angry and declares, "I'll only give you this contract if you eat my dog's food from his own bowl." Gao Han is offended, but he doesn't back down even at this point, determined to pursue the project. After he ate all the dog food, the woman also signed the contract. Gao Han happily brought the contract to Cheung the next day, but Cheung realized it was a verbal contract, meaningless. He told Gao Han that they needed to sign a written agreement with the woman before she changed her mind. They then went to her company to meet her. However, the CEO refused to meet them, and it was revealed that the CEO had been playing a game with Gao Han. Using the financial reports she had prepared, she contacted another company and listed her IPO. This deception leaves Gao Han devastated, but Cheung assures her that something good will happen to her in the future. Well, a moment later, a meeting of all the company's general managers is shown. They're being asked to sign a new contract by Lee, the head of the company. She wanted to approve any investment of up to 500 million, not just 100 million, without the signature or approval of any general manager. All the general managers, eager to stay in their superior's good books, sign it, but Cheung refuses. He rejects the proposal in front of everyone and leaves, leaving Lee furious. An enraged Lee calls Gao Han over and tempts him with the promise of a permanent senior manager position, saying, "If you fraudulently get Cheung to sign the company's file, I'll give you a share of the profits from the company's shares, enough to buy you a house." Gao Han, who came from a very small family and had been living on rent, is overcome with greed. Although he, like Cheung, was an honest officer, he agrees to Lee's proposal, given his own constraints. As soon as Cheung arrives, Cheung confronts him, furious. "You know what a vile person Lee is. He's committed a massive fraud in those documents, and the company he's about to list in the IPO has hired workers over the past several years, but not a single technician. This means their products will be 100% technically flawed." Gao Han then tasks Gao Han with researching their technical issues and submitting a report. Gao Han still works diligently, and for a while, it seems as if the greed Lee instilled in him is gone. He works diligently. He goes inside the factory to look for technical faults. He even monitors imports and exports outside the factory and finds ample evidence against the company. When Gao Han brings this report to Cheung, Cheung is even more impressed and immediately signs his preliminary report, promising to make his position permanent when he returns to Europe. Gao Han asks, "What are the chances of my position becoming permanent?" Cheung replies, "Over 80%. At this point, Gao Han's thoughts about Lee resonate. He had promised 100%. Now greed takes over, and in a twist, we learn that Gao Han had obtained signatures on the financial report for another company along with that report. Taking advantage of Cheung's trust, he takes the file and goes to Lee. He shows him the file and hands him another file. The contract contained a permanent contract for his job. He was using a rule Cheung had taught him against him, saying, Verbal agreements have no value. You must sign this contract for my job. Only then will I give you Jung's signed papers. Now, as per the contract, Lee takes Gao Han to SA Company that day. Gao Han himself had researched the irregularities, and Lee had obtained Jung's signature on the company's report. When Lee and Gao Han are about to sign the contract, Gao Han places another file in front of the company owner, containing all the company's inaccuracies. This file contains all the frauds he himself had discovered. Seeing this file, the company owner is utterly horrified. He thinks the contract won't be finalized. But here, we see Gao Han's even more treacherous and greedy side. He declares, "We've already fabricated the report. We'll sign, but on the condition that you give us more shares in your company and transfer 5% of it solely to me." The company agrees, and the deal is finally signed. According to this, Gao Han now holds 5% of the company's shares, and that too for free. Upon returning to the company, Lee announces Gao Han's promotion and his permanent position, and a party ensues in the office. When Jung learns that Gao has betrayed him, he is devastated and designs the company himself. Before leaving, he leaves his student Gao Han a painting that reads, "A man can be broken, but he cannot be defeated." He now works as a Bluestone instructor. He couldn't work together because Bluestone had used his name to deceive him. A few days pass, and we learn that Lee had now become Bluestone's president, and Gao Han had become the senior general manager. Lee often took Gao Han to meetings where she could gain personal advantage. Meanwhile, Jung had opened her own financial consulting firm, and her company was doing very well. Lee negotiated the IPO launch of a company called Jiang Energy, entrusting it to Gao Han, who owned Gao Han's friend's father. She wanted to take advantage of Gao Han's friend's trust and manipulate him into a cunning scheme Gao Han had no idea was possible. The next day, Gao Han arrived, and Jung's father welcomed him warmly. He begins to tell her about his company, which is an energy company, and is currently working on a material that will significantly save energy. This will free ordinary people and small factories from the burden of large international companies that generate and sell electricity at exorbitant prices, and will significantly reduce energy prices. Hearing this, Gao Han says, "This requires a lot of funding. The funding from your first IPO won't be enough. I think you should launch more IPOs to maximize funding." Up to this point, he was completely innocent. He didn't have a sly, devious heart, but Lee was the one who was supposed to make all this happen. Through Tohan, she instructs Zheng to transfer some of her company's shares to Blue Stock, guaranteeing that their company will be profitable for 2 years. In return, Blue Stock will launch 2 more IPOs, allowing them to produce 2 energy sources instead of just 1. Shakler thought for a while and then signed the agreement. Meanwhile, Ubli, through one of her managers, played a different trick. She contacted a rival company of Jiang Company and became its shareholder. Although this company wasn't generating much profit, Blue Stock now held shares in Jiang Company and also possessed all of Jiang Company's personal documents. They told this small company that they would inform them about any research Jiang would do or order for power production materials. By manufacturing that power material, they would soon become as strong as Jiang. On the one hand, they played this trick, but on the other, they played an even more serious trick. They also acquired the material company from which Jiang used to source materials. While purchasing shares in that company, Bluestone imposed a condition that they would no longer supply the material to Jiang Company, but instead